Hi, I'm Jimmy Steele. I opened my first recording studio when I was 22 years old, and I've been playing saxophone for nearly 20 years. This is all of my essential music tech knowledge for sax players in one video. Let's get started. The first thing we'll look at is microphone stands. You'll probably come across two different types of stand. You'll have the short boom stand and the long boom stand, or the normal microphone stand, like we have here. When you're playing saxophone, the best stand to use is the normal mic stand so that you can get a proper height on the saxophone's bell. You could use a short boom stand to get the height you need, but it might be more precarious as you'll be extending all of the arms out to get there, like so. You'll also need to attach your microphone onto the stand. Most microphones should come with a clip adapter, and there are two typical thread sizes used between clip attachments and microphone stands. There's the larger North American fitting and the smaller European fitting. Microphone clips usually come with some sort of adapter so that you can attach your clip onto the stand, regardless of the thread size on either end you might be presented with. So the next thing to consider is the cable. This is what you're going to use to connect the microphone to your sound source, and the main cable type that you'll need to become familiar with is the XLR or microphone cable. This cable uses a 3-pin system to connect between the microphone output and the XLR input, which is whatever you're plugging your microphone into, such as a mixing desk. We'll go over all of this in more detail throughout the video, so don't worry if it sounds a bit complicated just now. I would recommend getting an XLR of at least 6 meters in length. This should cover the length of cable needed for most gigging situations. For example, this custom series microphone cable that D'Addario have very kindly supplied for this video is 25 feet long, which should cover you enough for any situation. It is perfectly acceptable to plug multiple XLRs into one another to get the right amount of cable length needed. This is known as daisy chaining. Here I am talking into a microphone with 75 feet worth of XLRs plugged into one another, and it sounds alright, doesn't it? D'Addario also make a custom series XLR with a swivel connector, which allows straight-on connections, right angles, and anything else in between. This is perfect for any gigging situation where you might be presented with less than ideal cabling situations in a short amount of time. It is important to look after your XLRs and cables in general to prolong their usable life. This is mainly accomplished by coiling or wrapping them properly when not in use, and then ideally using some sort of cable tie to keep them in place, such as these cable ties that D'Addario have kindly supplied for today. This keeps them from getting tangled when not in use, especially when storing with other cables, and will elongate the lifespan of your cables. So when I'm coiling a cable, I just let the cable go naturally where it wants to go and let it guide me, and that can mean either flipping it around to the left or right, just seeing where the next coil wants to go. And there I had to pull it out a little bit just to straighten it out, and then see it just kind of naturally just start to coil where it wants to go, and then you can just keep going until you've got a nice coiled cable. So there are many types of microphone available, and as a saxophonist you're going to probably come across 4 main types. One of these is the wireless mic for gigging, which I'll show a video of me playing with my band The Vintage Explosion of now. In terms of recording and studio use, there are 3 main types. Dynamic mics. These are the typical microphones which you'll see on stage and in venues, recognizable as what most people perceive as a microphone. They are wonderful at rejecting background noise, which means that they generally only pick up what you point the microphone at, and are quite sturdy, hence their frequent use in live sound applications. Sound-wise, they aren't as detailed as the condenser or the ribbon microphone, but are a safe bet for use in general at gigs. What I'll do is play into all 3 of these microphones back to back in a moment so you can compare what they all sound like. Many live sound engineers like the Shure SM57 as a live sax mic, but as a top tip, see if they have an SM58 instead. It sounds a little bit better in my opinion. Condenser mics. These microphones generally sound a lot more detailed than dynamic microphones and produce a much better sound of the saxophone in my opinion. However, they do pick up a lot of noise from the surroundings, so are therefore better suited to studio environments or for recording at home, providing you have a quiet, somewhat dead sounding room to record in. A dead sound means that the room doesn't have many echoes and doesn't suffer from much background noise, such as the road outside, like the studio that we're in here. Condenser microphones are my favourite type of microphone to record saxophone with. They come in two main types, small diaphragm condensers and large diaphragm condensers, which are as they sound. One houses a smaller capsule and the other houses a larger capsule for capturing different types of sounds. In general, I have found that large diaphragm condensers sound better on saxophone, but this isn't to say that a good small diaphragm condenser won't also do the job. I really like recording saxophone with this old Sheps small diaphragm mic, for example. Condenser microphones usually require a power source in the form of something called phantom power, commonly labelled as 48 volts, denoting the voltage that phantom power is typically providing. This is something that is usually available from the microphone input on whatever piece of equipment you're using, and the power is provided down the microphone XLR cable, which we'll discuss in a moment, so you don't need to worry about where the power is coming from or provide your own power source. Ribbon microphones. This older style of microphone generally sounds more like a dynamic microphone with a bit more detail. Whilst they have many great uses and many engineers like the sound of a ribbon mic on the saxophone, I'm not the biggest fan for this purpose, as I find them to be quite dark and inaccurate. Due to the nature of how ribbon microphones are constructed, they pick up sound from both the front and the back of the microphone. This is known as a figure of 8 polar pattern, and a polar pattern is the term used to describe how a microphone picks up sound. They are also delicate. Ideally, they even need to be stored upright. Most microphones are passive, which means that they don't require the use of external power such as phantom power, as opposed to an active ribbon which would, and they can supposedly be damaged by phantom power. Real sound engineers can explain this much better than I can, and in reality I found from experience that even if you accidentally send phantom power down a ribbon microphone, they're generally going to be okay. What I'll do now is play into each of these 3 different microphones so you can hear what they sound like and make up your own mind. So, as you have seen from that, I have found that placing the microphone roughly facing between the bell and the left hand keys of the saxophone are a good place to start in terms of miking up your saxophone. If possible, it's best to monitor the sound by using something like a good pair of headphones. A lot of people fall into the trap of miking things up visually, but at the end of the day, it's the sound that matters. As one general recording example, one time I was experimenting by recording a guitar amp, and the best sound position for the microphone was around the back of the amp. So I'm now going to show you how to set up an audio channel. This might be useful if you are tasked with something like setting up your saxophone microphone into a typical mixing desk at a gig, or are looking to record some saxophone at home. These principles will apply to most pieces of equipment, and I'll show you how to set up a small interface like you might have at home in a second. We'll also discuss audio interfaces in detail in the next section. On most typical audio equipment, there are multiple ways of adjusting the volume for any channel. The channel is where the instrument or sound source comes in, so this is where you may have plugged your microphone in, for example. It's important to set them correctly to give you the best possible sound to work with. This is known as gain staging. Here's how I do it. I set the main or master level at 0. This means 0 decibels of noise gain or reduction as opposed to 0 sound level, sometimes denoted as U, as it is on this desk. U stands for unity, unity gain. I apply gain to the channel that the microphone is connected to by rotating the gain knob clockwise, typically until you have a healthy amount of signal, which is your noise coming in, shown on an indicator such as the green light you can see next to the gain control on channel 1. So what I'll do is I'll just speak into this microphone, there we go, and you can see the green light coming on, showing the healthy amount of gain. This is effectively how much sound you are letting into the channel. Set the volume of the channel accordingly. This will then go to the main output that we set before, which then subsequently puts the audio out to the system that you are using, such as a pair of speakers for amplification. So you may have less controls on an interface like this, but the principles remain the same. It's turned on and it's plugged into my laptop, and I've connected the microphone and XLR into the microphone channel, and I'm just going to apply gain until I get the green light again. And then this will be going to the laptop and the main output, which I can connect to something like my headphones, and I can control the volume here. This is essentially the same as adjusting the main or master level on the desk. The previously mentioned microphone placement technique and setting up an audio channel section should provide you with a solid starting point for home recording. There are just a few things and pieces of equipment to consider. You will need a recording device such as a portable recorder, or if you're using a computer you will need a digital audio workstation or DAW. This is audio recording software such as GarageBand on a Mac, as well as an audio interface. An audio interface is a device that acts like the mixing desk that we looked at previously, allowing you to connect your microphone to the computer, usually via a USB connection. An important consideration here is that your computer operating system, DAW and audio interface all need to be compatible with each other, so make sure you buy compatible hardware and software, otherwise things might not work smoothly or at all. A good pair of headphones is essential for home recording so that you can monitor the sound whilst minimizing bleed or noise spill into the microphone. There are typically two types of studio grade headphones, closed back and open back, where the headphone ear cups are open to allow airflow for better sound quality. These generally come with a 1/4" jack connection, which is something that an audio interface should accommodate. For recording, I recommend closed back headphones such as the D'Addario ones I have here to minimize the bleed. For some gigs, you may want to or be requested to use in-ear monitoring, often abbreviated to IEM. Generally, this should be as simple as providing your own specific in-ear monitoring headphones, known as IEMs, which typically come with a mini 1/8" headphone jack. I have found that simply providing your own in-ear headphones is enough for a gig. You could also provide your own 1/8" mini jack to 1/4" headphone jack adapter and headphone extension cable for added peace of mind. As a saxophonist, it's useful to know what's required of you and also what you need to gain from a sound check, ultimately so you can play your best and not be getting distracted by poor sound. My main points would be set up in plenty of time. They may seem slow to start as engineers set up speakers and cables, but sound checks begin to move quickly once noise is needed from musicians, so make sure you're ready to go in an instant. Play as loudly as you intend to play on the gig, and also give the sound engineer the full range of your instrument. For example, if you're playing a baritone, it's useful to give the sound engineer a blast of your low A if you have one. If you're playing as part of a wind section, play something together so that the engineer can get a good balance of all of you, and so that you can get similar balance of yourselves for playing well together and tuning. Make sure you can hear yourself, the wind section if necessary, and whoever you may need cues from, such as the lead vocalist, in whatever monitoring system you're using. It's okay to ask for something to be changed. Clip-on microphones are great for live use as they allow greater freedom of movement for you and more control for the sound engineer. Some clip-on microphones are wired and some are completely wireless for even greater movement, but you may need to check that you can use the specific operating frequency of the wireless microphone at the venue, and I've actually found that they're pretty unreliable regardless of how expensive they are. If you are using a wireless setup, having the receiver as close as possible to your microphone minimizes interference. It's a good idea to clip a clip-on microphone to the top of the saxophone bell so it doesn't interfere with your saxophone stand. Another top tip is to constantly keep them charged if applicable. I wouldn't recommend clip-on microphones for specific recording use. The following is a list of equipment which I would recommend acquiring as a starting point for any saxophonist. A normal boom microphone stand. This will typically come with a thread size adapter, so make sure to keep this handy. For your microphone stand, you can add on something such as this mic stand accessory system that D'Addario have kindly supplied. This is a modular mic stand mounted system which allows you to have a full array of accessories, such as this tray here which I've used to store my D'Addario earbuds. Each module can be set in virtually any configuration to suit the needs of a mobile gigging musician. An XLR cable such as the D'Addario ones we looked at earlier. A microphone. If you're just getting the one microphone, I would recommend a dynamic microphone for both gig and recording use. If you are only gigging, you may want to consider a clip-on microphone. If your budget and recording environment allows, you could get both a large diaphragm condenser for recording and a clip-on mic for gigging. Closed-back studio headphones. An excellent example is the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pro, a studio classic which I use. An audio interface. There are many great affordable single XLR input options available, such as the Scarlett one we looked at earlier. A digital audio workstation. I use Avid Pro Tools, but for something more affordable you could look at the excellent Reaper software, or if you have a Mac it will come with GarageBand for example. In-ear monitor headphones for when required. Some sort of portable PA system or speaker may be a great asset. For example, I use this Behringer PA speaker, which has both Bluetooth compatibility and is battery powered, as well as being on wheels, so I can literally take it anywhere and connect my phone to it for my backing tracks. It also has multiple inputs for connecting different microphones or hardware. Here's some ideas if you're stuck with a problem, so first of all, let's go through some troubleshooting for unwanted noise. Try switching out any combination of cable, sound source such as a microphone or audio channel on a desk to see if this eliminates unwanted noise. Look for a ground lift switch on any piece of equipment in use and turn it on. This may get rid of some buzz. Is the lighting in the location interfering with the sound? Is the volume or the gain too high somewhere along the signal chain? Is the EQ or FX set at a bad setting somewhere along the signal chain? And if there's no noise, is the power on? You never know. Is everything properly plugged in? Is anything muted on the audio output system, such as the mixing desk? For microphones, is there an on and off switch on the microphone? Try switching out any combination of cable, sound source, such as the microphone, or audio channel on a desk to see if this generates noise. On some mixing desks, you may need to send audio channels to groups first before they can go to the main output and generate noise. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Let me know if there's anything I've missed, and if you'd like a written copy of all of this information, then I have a PDF of it all for sale on my website, which I'll link below. So one of the top tips that I've not put in the PDF is that when I'm recording, I don't bother wearing a watch, which is extremely pedantic, but it's just in case the watch is ticking and it's picked up by the microphone.